Hello everyone, welcome back for another YouTube video. This is Cassie. We're going to be making what I'm calling the Hugs and Squishes Slimline card because I'm using the Hugs and Squishes stamp and die from Trinity. And I just love these little images in there and the little sentiments that go along with it. We're going to be using some Slimline products. We've got the stitched and we've got the Scenic borders, and then we're also going to be using the envelope die because I have the Tonic Specialty card, which I have so much of it. I don't know if you watched a haul that I had from Black Friday last year, but I have so much of this specialty card and paper, and I thought, man, this would be perfect to make your own envelopes with. So I am going to line this up. That paper actually measures 8 1/4 by 12 inches, so these will line up on there perfectly. You don't get every piece on there because you will need one more side piece, but you'll use one whole piece and then you'll use a little bit of another. And I'm actually going to be using the leftovers of both of those pieces to end up making all of my background for my card. So this is where I pull out the Scenic borders, and I'm going to cut those apart, and I'll tack the grass down to some key lime cardstock from Brutus Monroe. And then I'll run that through my Gemini. This fits perfectly through the Gemini. If you have a regular die cutting machine, you can do it. You'll just have to kind of manipulate it, do part of the die, then pull it out, and then shift everything and do the other part of the die. But with the Gemini, it works perfectly. So I'm grabbing the scraps from that specialty paper. That's the Azzurro Feathers. And everything that I use, I will link down below in the description box. But I'm going to just run that through a bunch of times over my leftover paper because I want to make a scene with my card. It just seems like the perfect thing to do with some of these slimlines. And I've seen some absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous scenes that people have made with their slimline cards, and so I'm going to try my hand at it, and I'm going to have to run that through several times. You'll notice obviously it doesn't cut all the way through because that paper is so big, but this is where I'm going to pull in the stitched slimline die, and then I'm going to line that up on there, and I'll have a couple separate pieces with that, and I'll keep doing that. And the reason I use that is because it'll end up giving a stitched border around all 4 of the edges of that card. So I've cut my paper to 8 1/2 inches by 7 inches, and now I'm scoring it at 3 1/2 inches. That's how I make my slimline cards. I don't think there's really a set measurement for them, but this is what works, and they fit beautifully inside the envelope. And then I'll just score that and then fold that down the center. Now I'm going to stamp out my images. I won't bore you with all the stamping because I do stamp a bunch of the reeds, but I'm inking up my stamp. This is the Hugs and Squishes onto some Express It cardstock using my Memento Tuxedo black ink because I do plan to do some Copic coloring. So let's go ahead and get started with our Copic coloring. We're going to use an array of greens. So we've got YG95. We're going to start with that on our little monster here. He's the creature from the Black Lagoon, I assume, or he's, Toad Gone Wrong, something like that, but I just think he's adorable. He's one of those kinds of unbelievable creatures, so I just had to have him. So I'm just putting down a nice base of color for him, and then I'm going to come in with some G99 for my darker shade. And that is significantly darker, which I like that it is, but then I don't really have a shade that goes in between those. So I'm going to show you a little trick here. I'm going to do some tip to tip. So what that means is I'm going to take my lighter marker and I'm going to grab some of the darker color, and it'll grab enough, and then as you color out, it'll get rid of that. So you are definitely not going to ruin your marker by doing some tip to tip, but it is just a great way to extend the colors that you do have if you don't have a bunch of colors. But tip to tip is great, and like I said, you won't ruin your markers that way. And then that way I have some extra shading in there. I'm going to come in with my darker shade one more time now that that G99 has dried a little bit, so I'll just add a little bit of accent there. And then we'll move on to our little frog. I love how tiny that little frog is. So we're going to start off with some YG01 for his base color. I'm going to bring in some of that color for my frog as well, or my turtle as well, which we're also going to bring in the creature from the Black Lagoon's colors as well. The darker shade I'm using here is YG23. I didn't put the cap up on the screen. Sometimes I forget when I'm just kind of in create mode, but it was YG23. And then now I will color the shell of our little turtle using the same colors that I used for our little Black Lagoon creature. And I'm doing some stippling on his shell just to add some texture. And then I'll come in with that YG95 to kind of blend that out just a little bit. I will come in later on with a white gel pen because these are creatures that are little critters that might be in the water. So they are going to have a little shine to them. My lily pad was colored with, golly, I don't even remember what color it was. If I can remember, I will put it up on the screen for you. But yeah, and then we'll color our reeds, and then we're going to start doing all of our die cutting. I do end up stamping out both of the sentiments and coloring those using colors I've already used, a little bit of ombre on those, and then I'll also die cut those as well. You'll see that here in a minute. But I'm going to tack these down with a little bit of purple tape and then run that through my die cutting machine, obviously many times because I have so many reeds on there. But there is a reason for that, and I think I end up using almost all the reeds that I had cut and colored. So there you can see the Hugs and Squishes and Hope Your Day is a Splash up there along with all the other images that I die cut out. I'm going to do a little ink blending on my grass border. I am going to be using some peeled paint to start. I thought that accented very nicely with my key lime cardstock. And then I'm also going to come in with some forest moss, so that's a bit darker. And I think that adds a nice shade, so then we end up having 3 little shades of green there on our key lime cardstock. And then I'm going to take it even a step further, which is always something fun to do. I'm going to squish my pad onto my glass mat, grab a paintbrush with a little bit of water, and then I'm going to splatter that all over the grass just to add even a little bit more texture. I love doing something like this. It's fun. You can't really see it a whole lot on the screen right now, but it definitely shows up on the card in real life, and it just looks really good. So we'll do that, and then when we're done, we'll clean up our mess, which is the joy of the Tim Holtz glass mat, because it's easy to clean up. Now I'm going to go ahead and start adhering all of my water pieces to my card base. And that card base was just some Bruce Monroe whitewash cardstock. I just like how that whitewash cardstock almost looks like it's handmade paper. It's really cool. You'd have to see it. It has little bits of just, I don't know, it just looks handmade. It's very neat. So I've kind of tried to design where I want those waves to be. They're going to be kind of a little bit different, kind of up and down a little. Not going to just slap them right on there perfectly because then it'll look like the wave is the exact same, which I don't have a problem with, but I did want a little bit of variation in the height of those. So I'm going to overlap, and we'll just keep putting that paper down until we're happy. And we'll do that with all 4 of the pieces that I cut out, which I'm loving it. It looks good. And even though that background is really pretty textured, which is really cool, it's the neat thing about this specialty card, I'm going to add more to it later. But before I do that, I'm going to decorate the inside. I'm not going to put the grass down yet because, like I said, I want to do more to the outside. But let's decorate the inside. I'll grab the sentiment that I want, kind of place it where I think it might go, and then I'm going to grab my little creature, and I am going to ink him up with that Forest Moss Distress Oxide. I love how the Distress Oxides are good for stamping. The regular Distress inks are not, but these Distress Oxides can definitely be used for stamping. And now that I've got him down in the little corner there, I'm going to put some liquid glue on the back of my sentiment and put that down there. So that'll finish off the inside, and now we're going to do some splattering on the outside. I'm going to grab some Distress paint in the color Picket Fences, and then I'll just grab a paintbrush with a little bit of water on it, and I'll flick that all over my background, and I love how that just adds. You know, if you think about it with water, you're going to have some, you know, if there's sunlight or even the moonlight is going to flick some bits of light on there. And so, I mean, obviously this isn't accurate, but I love how the paint adds even that much more. It does stay wet for a little while, and it is permanent, which is why I used a splatter box, and I tried to heat set it the best that I could. I'll put some of that liquid glue on the back of my grass, and then I'll tack that down. I like how the grass goes all the way from edge to edge, which is so nice. And then I'll just tack it down, making sure that it stays. I didn't put it all the way up to the very top, which is good because I want to tack down my reeds. And so there's a lot there, and I'm going to show you most of them getting put on there. That's a pretty big background. That's the one thing that's slightly intimidating about a slimline card, is that it can be intimidating if you want to do up a scene or anything else for that matter, because there's a lot of coverage. You know, there's a lot to put on there, or a lot to think about what you might want to put on there. And so these little scene cards can be fun. Just use up the little pieces. If you look at your stamp sets, there's probably a bunch of little pieces that don't hardly even get used that often. I know I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I'll look at the little stamps, I'll be like, I'm good, I don't need to put that on there. But in a case like this, oh my gosh, they just add so much to the scene. I ended up like falling in love with this card when all was said and done. It was so fun to create. I love the finished product. And whoever I give this to, I'm just, yeah, I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's fun. So I'll just keep tacking those little reeds down. And I like how some of them are bigger. You know, there's a big one and a small one, so you can kind of make them go higher and lower. And I'm just having fun. I'm trying to work in odds. So if you notice, I put 5 there. This one ends up having 4, but one of them is up a lot higher than the other, so it's almost like it's on its own. He's just kind of sticking out of the water. I did place my images down kind of where I wanted them because I wanted this little creature to look like he was coming out of the reeds. And so I'll tack him down as well now that I know where he's going. And then I'll tack down my turtle, and I went ahead and put my frog on top of my lily pad already. So I'll tack that down as well, and I'll put that last little reed right next to him because that would make some sense, right? And I don't use any foam tape on this, which is quite surprising. I just use liquid glue for all my images because I am going to bring in some of the Trinity Stamps Jellyfish Jewels mixed rhinestones, which are beautiful. They go well with, I mean, they're called Jellyfish Jewels. So I just figured, why not add these to a water scene? There's so many pretty colors in there, like blues and pinks and lavender and green, and I just thought it worked so well with this card front, and I was very, very liberal with how many I put on there. But there it is. Now I'm going to add some of my white gel pen. This is the Sakura Jelly Roll. I think it's a number 8. Could be littler than that, I'm not sure. But I'm just adding some dots just to add little highlights. You guys know I don't typically do that on all of my creatures, or critters, but these ones were wet, so I figured it would work perfectly. But now we got to get ready to put that envelope together, which is so, so, so simple. All the pieces were cut out. Now I'm just folding along those score lines, and then I'm going to start attaching. And I don't think it really matters if you attach the bottom and the top before you do the sides, or vice versa, because I've done it both ways, and the envelope works fine both ways. So you could absolutely put your outsides down for, or your side pieces down first if you wanted, or you could do your top and bottom, or go all the way around in a circle if you wanted. It's not going to affect how the envelope actually works. So I'm putting all that down just with some liquid glue. I would highly recommend that you use a very strong adhesive. If you have a good strong just regular tape, that would work fine too, like a double-sided tape. But I like the liquid glue because I just feel like it gives me that much extra security. So I'm just tacking that down all the way around my card. Obviously getting sidetracked. You know what? I think I got a FaceTime call is what I did. So I'm FaceTiming at the same time as making this, which is always fun. And so once that is done, we're going to close up the inside pieces. So or the side pieces, you'll close those up. And then you'll do your bottom piece right on top of that. So there is some, you do have to do this in order. And then obviously don't close your top flap. Wait on that one. But there it is. Isn't that beautiful? It has all this great texture. I would suggest that you'd either have to use like a black Sharpie or possibly use those envelope stickers, like address stickers, to write your address. But isn't that fun? Those turned out so great. I love how I've got this matching envelope that even, the background ties with the envelope. And there you have it. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. You may want to even hit the little notification bell to let you know when I've put up a video if you haven't already done so. And I will see you very soon in the next video. Goodbye, everybody.